Get started. Thank you very much for joining. Michael, I'm excited. I mentioned this in posts. I mentioned this to you, but at GreenBiz in February of 2026, I was at the very last panel. Half the people were out the door to the airport, and I thought it was a throwaway panel, and you crushed it. You did a great job. You shared a lot of specific stories. You had a lot of unique points of view, so I'm looking forward to talking about this. So, Michael, you're the first sustainability hire and therefore the sustainability lead at Hamilton Company, a producer of many medical devices I cannot even begin to pronounce, even though I tried as I was preparing for this, but we'll just call it generally syringes. And I'm sure you can clarify that as time goes on. Where I want to start is you've been there for a little over a year. You sit in the quality department, which is unique. That's not very common as a
Mhm.
um, kind of structural line to roll up into. Why do you sit into the quality department, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of sitting there at a place like Hamilton?
Yeah, that's a fun question to start with. And I think as I'm talking to sustainability professionals, I think you can learn a lot about how a company values sustainability by who they report to. And yeah, for Hamilton, I report to our director of quality and regulatory because that's where the customer requests were getting funneled. So after years and years of customer requests and pushing off data that we didn't have or didn't understand, they hired a consultant for 6 months that kind of got their foot in the door, and then they realized that they really wanted to bring it in house. So yeah, when I started, I think I logged into our EcoVadis portal for the first time, and we had over 50 requests for a scorecard that didn't exist from the previous year. And that's not to mention all of the greenhouse gas inventory, et cetera. So, yeah, really, I'd say this entire role is very customer request driven. We supply our products to a lot of the large pharma, life science, medical labs. So publicly facing companies with bold sustainability targets, and we are their scope three and trying to position ourselves as responsible partners that want to help them achieve their goals.
Let me stay on quality for a second. Why were the requests coming into the quality department instead of some sort of like customer service department or uh, the sales team? Like, why was quality in charge of that on that end of it? And then it's only been a year, so it takes time for things to develop. But what do you think could be the lasting benefits of sustainability being in quality beyond giving emissions data and packaging weight data to customers?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, honestly, when I joined, I was a little wary because, in my experience, I guess I'll also say I'm a recovering consultant. I was in supplier engagement consultant for a while before I went in-house with this position. And yeah, in those positions, we were working with the sustainability team. We were working and they were embedded within marketing or procurement or whatnot. Like this is really the first experience I've had of sustainability starting within a quality department. And I think the reason is our products uh, are very precise, very high, very strict quality standards.
Mhm.
We create automated liquid handling systems where we're automating the movement of different fluids, solvents, blood, etc. And when you're doing those medical tests, it needs to be accurate and verifiable to the nearest like milliliter or even like picoliter, nanoliter, like very small amounts. So that's where the quality department really kind of has its tendrils throughout every product and every process within the company. So they essentially received the quality requests when uh, they needed to update a product or customers needed support in the field. That turned into regulatory support around, conflict minerals, et cetera. And then the requests would go to the marketing team, but then they would come directly to us and ask about sustainability data because quality did have its hand in environmental health and safety. It was very much a lowercase e there for a while, but now we have a comprehensive environmental management system, and I think it's funny. Over the last year, I was a little wary coming in, but I think it actually makes a lot of sense for sustainability to sit within a quality department
Do you think that should be
because
adopted elsewhere in healthcare? Like you're gonna like if you were just king of the world here, you'd push for it, or do you think it just works specifically because of who Hamilton is?
I think it depends on the company type. We're we are very much a manufacturing company, a like high precision manufacturing company. So our quality team is engaging with the whole company. I
That's probably
think,
not seen as the B team there. Like the quality team at a high
oh
precision
yeah,
manufacturing company is probably some of the top people.
yeah, they have a lot of respect and the network connections throughout the company to really get stuff done. But other companies that are more product focused, more customer focused. I think there it can make more sense, to be housed within
Yeah.
marketing or supply chain, et cetera. But I think for manufacturing companies, I think it makes a lot of sense to actually sit within
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah. That makes sense. For you mentioned that when you got there, there were like 50 requests sitting in Ecovadas for a scorecard that didn't exist. Yeah, one way to look at it is look at that. 50 people want to see this stuff. Another way to look at it is 50 people have asked for this stuff, didn't get it, and they're obviously still customers. I'm
Mhm.
curious as you think about the tension that we talked about a little bit in prep, but it also comes up all the time. Customers ask, and half the industry only exists because customers ask for stuff. But then a lot of times you also hear like, well, if you don't do it, where you still make the best products, or you're still an N of one supplier. So like,
Mhm.
what are you gonna do? Who are you gonna leave? They have built their whole product and process around buying Hamilton. How do you think about the tension between it's essential to have customer requests and would customers really leave if you don't tell them the emissions of a product?
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the risk that you're deciding to manage. And I think when I was a supplier engagement consultant, I think it was someone at CDP said, when a customer gets a request from one, or a supplier gets a request from one customer for a CDP request, there's like maybe a 50% response rate. But once they hit the threshold of they have at least three customers asking for the same data format, that's when you see it move above, 80, 90%. And, those percentages, I'm sure they've changed, but I think the premise holds true where we get a lot of requests where we sell globally, so some of them can be very niche. And yeah, there's a real, I guess, talent or strategy to deciding how to prioritize those requests, especially when, I'm the only guy that is managing this data. And, I'm trying to not spend my entire life reporting and actually do some of this stuff. So, yeah, I think that's really the way that we've tried to simplify it is I've got a spreadsheet of every customer request that comes in. I categorize what type of data they're looking for, and if it's a one-off for a niche new regulation that might go into effect in 2 years in Southeast Asia, then we might hold off on that for a year and tell
And what
them
are
that
those communications like? You just respectfully say, call me if it becomes real, or
yeah,
sorry, that's not something we can help you on. Like, what if
yeah,
it's a niche Southeast Asian regulation that's going into effect
right.
in 2 months? Would
Yeah.
you scramble, or would you say, I'm sorry, I've never heard of this thing before?
Yeah, I think it depends on the urgency. It depends on the size of the customer. If it's a key customer, then we'll definitely work with them a lot harder. If it's a smaller customer, then you know, really, we have a certain amount of capacity. Where do we want to put that? And we never want to just say like, no, we can't do that. But sometimes we don't have the data system in place to collect that data, and it's manual engagement, and we just
Yeah.
don't have the capacity. But I think we're always willing to work to give us an answer that's satisfactory. I've also realized, and I think this is my consulting experience again in the past. I think great example like CBAM. A lot of customers just mass emailing their supply chain, not realizing that the
Yeah,
products that we
I have a
supply
thousand
them,
suppliers.
yeah,
I need this data. Give me this
yeah,
data
they
from
just see new
sustainability
regulation,
at
yeah,
company.com.
mass
Yeah.
email, and our products aren't even in scope of CBAM. So that's where, I came back and said, hey, based on the regulation, this line, like our products are exempt. So I think part of that is it's not a negotiation, but it's a collaboration to help our customers even understand like what's necessary and what we're able to
Yeah.
support with.
You
But
you told me, I mean, kind of on that note about the big mass email, you told me that everyone does this big mass email, especially larger companies. But what they really want is not a response to an email, it's a conversation. And they
yeah,
should go ask for the conversation. I mean, this is just Relevant to me, we send out this like it's called a Net Promoter Score survey, NPS score, to customers. We do it at 3 months, 6 months, and 11 months, just to be like, how's it going? Any problems? Any features? Anything you like? And so we were going through them. A bunch of companies hit the 6 month mark this last couple of weeks, and so we were going through them, and a bunch of people like filled out. They scored us on 1 through 10. We're like, oh, we got an 8 over here and a 10 over here and a 7 over here. And then we're looking at like, what are you going to do with that? Like, oh, I guess averaged out, it's an 8.5, and that's nice. What we really want is a conversation. What we really want is for you to call me for 15 minutes and say, I like this. I've got a problem with this. I wish you did that. It's the same thing in every customer supplier relationship. What you really want is a conversation. Now, you can't do that across 1,000 people. But my question for you is, putting on your consultant hat for a moment. If you were one of your customers and you were one of these giant global, many tens of billions of dollars, many countries, many thousands of suppliers company, how would you advise that they prioritize supplier conversations? And how would you advise them to actually run those conversations? What should those topics be if you're going to try to have real one-on-one conversations instead of mass emails and surveys?
Totally. And I'm going to have kind of a two-part answer to that because I think you can group these customer requests kind of into two key buckets. It's kind of the regulatory floor and then like the aspirational ceiling. I think the regulatory floor tends to be more urgent, more almost fear-based of we need you to give this data to us or we're going to get in trouble and we can't sell our products. But I think that fear can almost like cloud the actual request. It just becomes urgent. We need this data, but I think it almost can become less clear. Like the CBAM was a great example of we need this data now, we need to report it. And it's like, oh, well, our products aren't even in scope of that, at least currently. Um, so I think that one side is just if a new regulation is coming out, make sure you truly understand the actual data request and how it needs to be formatted. Because I've also had follow up on requests of, oh, like we actually thank you for giving us that data. We actually need it in a slightly different format. So I think the age old like clear is kind.
Mhm.
Just be very intentional when you're reaching out. And then the other side, the aspirational science-based target, et cetera. Um, I think that is a very clear data ask. I think companies like to sometimes ask for different variations of that, but like before you take and really like the survey as I see it is companies want our EcoVadis score, they want our greenhouse gas inventory so that they can update their scope 3, and then they want us to set a science-based target. Like those are the three key data requests. If you vary from that in any way, just be very intentional in why you actually need to ask for additional data and just ask and really just know that the more that you differ from those common data formats, the less responses and more effort it's going to take to get those responses.
Is there anything, two questions here. One, is there anything that you think is important to know that does not exist in those three categories? And then kind of sub question, you mentioned Ecovatus, you mentioned SBTI, you did not mention CDP as one of those standard formats. What's your perspective on CDP?
Yeah, I'll just say all of these are very industry dependent. I was in like the tech and semiconductor industry before. CDP and RBA were like top of mind for a lot of the companies I was working with. Now that I'm in the healthcare, pharma, life science space, no one's mentioned CDP. I'm kind of surprised, but yeah, the focus is a lot more on
Mm.
EcoVadis and then SBTI.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Is there anything missing from I actually phrase it this way. Now that Hamilton's been doing this for years, is there any data you wish you could share that you think would be valuable to customers that doesn't fit into one of those standard formats?
Yeah, yeah, it's the funny like what did I wish I had more questions on so that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had more
Yeah.
buy-in for our
Well, that you're
program.
proud of, or
Yeah.
even just like this is a special thing about what we do here, and I wish there's a format in which to tell that story.
Yeah. I think where I'm trying to be forward-looking is around product carbon footprints and LCAs. There are some like lab product like the ACT Eco label and such that are like product specific certifications. and we're seeing the pharma industry start to adopt that in their supplier engagement programs. But I haven't received any specific requests around like product carbon footprints, and I really don't have the the business case to go and ask for funding for a PCF solution until I can show that we have customer demand for that.
Yeah.
So, right now it's a nice to have, but it's not a need to have. And the need to have comes from, you know, repeated customer requests,
What
like we were
customers
saying
ask you
earlier.
for over and over again. I just remind folks the chat is open and the Q&A is open, so feel free to pop things in there as we go through this. You mentioned carbon footprints, and you mentioned kind of going out to vendors. We talked a lot in prep about AI, and I know you recently just took, I think it's called Kith Climate. And so you took a Kith Climate course about how to use AI in your work. And one of the things we were talking about is that now that you can build bad versions of software on your own, and bad, I don't mean as bad because you're building it, it's bad. I'm sure you do a great job. Bad is like, it's just, there's only so much one person can vibe code. There's a reason there's a lot of engineers at these companies. There's, data security, and there's small features you never would think of. And there's like complicated APIs that you just can't vibe code that you need to be an engineer for. Um, but you can do an okay version that is hyper specialized. And I think right before we talked, you had vibe coded out this like OSHA related product. Talk a little bit about how you think about what you're now are able to build that you think is actually could go into production at Hamilton. And then
Mhm.
talk about how being able to build bad or limited versions or incomplete versions of products makes you a better buyer or makes your expectations for the software you do buy go up.
Yeah. I'll probably go on a rant here, so feel free to,
Rant. I'll mute
pull me
myself. Go
away
for
and
it. Go for it.
recenter me. But I think first of all, I'll say there's just so much talk around AI and how to use it. The first thing that I wanted to do was upskill myself, and I think you do that by, one, you need more reps. So use it more, even if it's imperfect. Like, you're literally trying to teach yourself a new skill. The only way you do that is by practicing that skill. So, yeah, I got really bad. I was using, AI chat GPT as like a Google search engine. And then I updated my prompts and I learned skills and project development and vibe coding. So yeah, just do it. And then the second part is surround yourself by people that know more than you. And the way that I did that was through the Kith Climate AI for Sustainability program, where it's a 6-week program. At the beginning of each week, you get a new set of data. You're essentially a consultant advising a make-believe venture capital firm. And after those 6 weeks, I went from understanding how to organize a database specifically for AI extraction and AI enablement, building QA QC into the data analysis, which is, I think, a big challenge of AI is like, how do you trust the results? And then by the very last week, I had a full climate dashboard for the company that I vibe coded myself. It mapped out the data. It had a full methodologies tab. Like, I was astonished by how much I was able to do in the 6 weeks. And the reason I was able to do that was, yes, it was a very well structured program that walked you through the progression. But 3 times a day, I got on a call, or sorry, 3 times a week, I got on a call with other climate professionals that were also trying to use AI for their sustainability jobs, and seeing how other people in different sectors, in different functions were using, and like their focus. Like, I tended to be very like data, like operations heavy. There were other people that focused more on the climate communication side of things, which was extremely enlightening. So I think that
Yeah.
was a great program for me to, yeah, get more reps, but actually get informed practice. And
Did
then,
you use like what were the tools for that? Did you use Claude Code? Were you in Lovable? What were you using in that work?
yeah, so their entire curriculum is based around Claude Code, which, on the personal side, it was $20 a month for a Claude Code subscription for the program. And then I think on the business side, that makes it very easy to, extend into a Claude Enterprise and
Yeah.
implement what I learned.
Yeah. And one note here that Ruchi shared is that where she works at Gilead, CDP is still valued. Just going back to the last conversation. It's partially because you can reuse something like CDP on many other tenders and other places. And I think that's what CDP, we did a webinar last week with the chief customer success officer of CDP. And I
Mhm.
think that's really what they're going for is that this one data in, put it out in lots and lots of places. And based on what you're being requested for, great. You don't need to do the whole CDP survey. You could just kind of fill out the right format. So
Mhm.
maybe it just depends on where in the healthcare stack you are or who
Yeah.
the specific customers are.
Yep. Yeah. Again, very sector specific. I know CDP in general has done a very good job of standardizing the data request.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it tends to be more greenhouse gas focused. And I think
Greenhouse
that
gas and
if,
climate risk is sort of their core thing, but I think
yeah,
EcoVadis has a broader remit than just traditional
yeah.
climate.
In health and pharma, the human rights and ethics side of things is
Yeah.
definitely, front of
Yeah.
mind for us.
I don't
So
think CDP touches that, but I could be wrong there.
I
Um,
don't think so.
I
Yeah.
don't think so. Back to AI for a second, but kind of that's how you build things, and that those are some examples around that. How do you think it impacts how you buy things? I mean, we were talking about carbon emissions, for example,
Hmm.
and I know a bunch of companies who have churned off their carbon emissions vendor over the last year or two and said either I can build something myself if I have emissions factors, and those are fine to get. Um,
Yeah.
I can certainly build out a lot of features and bells and whistles and just the ones I need and not keep paying for the ones I don't need. Or they're saying, you know what, regulations have changed. My emissions are simple enough. I can do this stuff in spreadsheets with a little bit of kind of my own knowledge. And I also know people who said, well, look, I don't want to rebuild it. What a pain. Like, who wants to go rebuild something? Well, just because. But I could, and so I want to pay less for what I have because I want to move my budget toward things I can't necessarily rebuild.
Yeah.
And plenty of people are also paying for expensive carbon accounting all the time. So that's not the full story, but it is if not a trend, at least kind of an anecdotal thing I've noticed. How has being more proficient at AI changed how you look at buying software and what your expectations are of software?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big question now, like build it or buy it. I think here's what I'll say. I think AI is it's a useful tool for analysis. I have no doubt that I could now create my own carbon accounting platform. And maybe going back to your very first question on AI aggregates to the mean. So it takes all of human knowledge that's out there on the internet, and it creates something that is by definition incredibly average based on what's out there and the predictive modeling. That means if I'm not very good at greenhouse gas accounting, it can get me to proficient. I don't think it'll get me to audit grade, audit ready platform, unless one, you have someone who knows the greenhouse gas protocol like the back of their hand and has the time to build out a platform. But um, I think the example that I use, our in-house AI tool is called Abacus. It's essentially an aggregator of the different tools out there. So depending on what I put in there, it'll pull from Claude, Gemini, OpenAI, uh, etc. But I've started creating projects within that. But because I'm a team of one, not planning on expanding the team anytime soon, and that's because the projects that I'm managing are with our in-house AI, where I have different project folders, uploading the methodologies, the project files, creating roadmaps, doing it all within that tool. And I've created a workflow for our greenhouse gas accounting software where the hardest part is it's not actually like uploading the data to the platform, it's formatting the data in order to be uploaded. So I've now created I guess you'd call it an agent. It's an automated workflow where I take the template that we uploaded last year, I take a blank template, and then I take the new data from this year, and I say, based on this, I want you to transform this data into the new template, and then automatically create a tab identifying any data flags or outliers, and then create a separate tag identifying the methodologies and any assumptions that we made. So that's like far more auditable than what I did last year, which was literally like looking at fuel receipts and
And
then
also probably
uploading
far
them.
more personal to your specific business. Like for the
Yeah,
most part, it's 80% of things are the same for everybody. But like in
yeah,
your specific world, what the bills look like or who you're getting the bills from or what the data is just a little bit different than what the average is. And you could go, ask your software vendor to go customize it for your 20%, or you could just kind of build it yourself now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of the question is like now when do I upload 50 PDF receipts to our AI software? Or when do I actually need to go through the 50 PDF receipts myself and ensure that the data is accurate? And
Yeah.
I think yeah, it's a real question, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I think AI is a useful tool for supporting a
Mhm.
carbon accounting solution. At this point, I think the main benefit of just climate software in general is actually the customer support side of things. Because even once I have the final template, I upload it, etc., it's the client success team that I get to talk to about the niche questions, and they give me the confidence in the final results.
Yeah.
And I think that's they're kind of the more traditional carbon accounting platforms that are trying to integrate AI. You're now seeing these like AI native carbon accounting platforms with an agent swarm that takes whatever you put in and creates a result that you may or may not be able to trust. And then you still have like, the manual consultants and teams that are doing it in spreadsheets. And yeah, at least where I sit, I'm the manual uh, grunt that's doing a bulk of the work, but still having that final software to plug everything is in essentially as a database, and then trace everything back and make it auditable. I think there's still a lot of value in that, and I think
I
that would be
think
hard to replace.
I think it'd be hard to replace, and I think I'd even push that a little bit further to your point of your favorite thing about climate software right now is not even the technology, it's the people. The reason for that is probably twofold. It's the confidence you get from talking to somebody smart and the point of view that you get because they serve 50 or 100 customers and you are just dealing with your own problems every day, and so you want to get the view of 50 or 100 people. And I think good software, like all good technology, is opinionated. It
Mhm.
says this is not just how you complete a task, but this is the right way to complete that task. AI is not opinionated. It's kind of what you said earlier. It's just like the average of a lot of opinions, which is the most bland thing possible. And if you just want to kind of go with the crowd, which very often is the right move, then great. But if you want opinions of people you trust, then that can be brought into software in good ways. So I think it's also part of the value of software done well is to say, not just here's a place you can stick a report or stick a one thing and we have an AI wrapper
Yeah,
that sticks out something at the other end, but it's like here's the right way to do this. And we deliver that guidance to you through advice. Great. You got a good customer success person, you like talking to them, fantastic. And if we deliver that guidance to you through buttons and modules and a workflow that's easy and intuitive and that has been tested across hundreds of customers, and I think that's fantastic too. But I think that's what software needs to continue to be is that we think that this is the right way of doing things. And you may not, then you should not become a customer. But if you do and you want to continue to trust that, great. And if you prefer someone else's opinion, go with their opinion. But hopefully it's not a kind
yeah.
of degeneration to the mean.
And can I build off of that real quick?
Yeah.
I think the something that I've been thinking about with AI a lot is it's essentially flipping the 80/20 rule, where, it used to take me 80% of my job to create something, and then 20% of it was review and finalization. Now I can create a 20-page analysis in 10 minutes, but I need two
So take a long time
hours
to read it. Yeah.
2 hours to review that, and I need the knowledge to know how to question it and what to review. So I think there's some people
I think it's a
saying that,
really good point of like
yeah,
it's not even, if you could get any of the information at all in the world, then the problem is not having the answers, it's having the questions. If
yeah,
you can build
exactly.
absolutely anything in the world, the problem's not that you can build it, it's what should you build. So I think I think it's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, and I think like people talk about how AI is, diminishing our critical thinking skills. I think it's making those critical thinking skills more critical than ever because if I produce that, greenhouse gas inventory in an hour and just say, cool, I have a greenhouse gas inventory, check the box. But no, it takes, my decade plus of experience and master's degree and et cetera to actually understand those results and know when to question it. And I think that's the critical piece that I think is irreplaceable is you will always need a human in the loop. And that's because at the end of the day, AI is a tool and you can't fire a tool. you're going to fire the person who took that analysis and it wasn't ready and brought it to the CEO or published it. Like it's the same thing as, carbon accounting solution. Like you don't get upset. Maybe you get upset at the tool or the consultants that helped you, but ultimately it's the person that reviewed that result and said it was finalized when it wasn't, who gets in trouble. And I think AI is exactly the same.
Yeah, everyone said AI was going to take all the jobs and take all the work. Even in our, Beehive, one of the things we do is we draft all these like IFRS S2 reports. These
Mhm.
reports can be like 50, 70 pages long very often. And what used to be kind of 80% of your time to draft it took months and months. And it's just a lot. You imagine writing 50 pages, even if you knew what to write, it takes a lot to write. Now you click a button in Beehive, 3.5 minutes later, you have this report. Great. Are you done? No. Now you got to read a 50-page report. You got to read it, a couple months earlier than you would have read it otherwise. But where did this citation come from? Why is this the right way to put it? Not even like, is this true? That's kind of black and white, but you could maybe trust the AI to answer that if it does a good job. But should I say this? Is it strategic to say? Can I defend this to my comms team? How
Mhm.
would my legal team want this phrased? There's three ways to phrase a true statement. Which one do I choose? Those are all things that continue to be really hard. And then now, what hopefully you can do is actually act on the information faster. And this is a problem. I started selling carbon accounting software in 2021. We ran around the world promising, oh, you can't manage what you don't measure. Can't believe you're still in spreadsheets. We're going to automate it all, get it into software. And nothing really happened. Like it used to be 9 months to do your emissions in a spreadsheet. Now it's 9 months to do your emissions in software, sort of the same. Um, I can't speak to carbon accounting. I've been in that world in a little bit, but certainly in climate risk, now it doesn't take 9 months to do an assessment or write a report. It takes, an hour. What do you do in the rest of those 9 months? Hopefully you have the expertise and the knowledge and the point of view to act on it, to go de-risk, to go buy the right insurance, to go write a business continuity plan, to like do something with it. And that takes a lot of critical thinking and perspective and point of view, but it only becomes possible for a team of one to do because you got a little intern named Claude running around doing something for you.
Pretty much. And I mean, the same way I wouldn't take an intern's summer research project and hand it straight to the CEO. I'm not doing that with Claude. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my favorite metaphor we use all the time is that AI is amazing. It's really great. It's like a recent MBA grad that went to Harvard undergrad, Harvard MBA.
Yep.
However, it went to graduate school straight out of college, has never had a job, and still lives with his parents.
Yep.
Like it'll work all night and give you something, but it doesn't really have much life experience, and you shouldn't
Yeah.
really trust its maturity.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I know the type. I was the type at one point. Yeah.
You had this line in our prep call. I'm going to read directly because I wrote it down. Um, we were talking about how you make this valuable to the business, which is everyone's favorite topic at every conference. We have this line where if every time I want to do something, I'm going to go ask my CEO for money to create impact, that's not a business function, that's philanthropy. Can you talk a little bit about how you think, and maybe both are fine, but how you think about what your work means to the business so that it's not philanthropy and more of a business function, or maybe it is philanthropy and that's fine too.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess I'll give a little bit of like personal context too. I started my career in wildlife conservation research, catching lizards, doing tree measurements. Then I spent 4 years in the nonprofit sector and ended up on the board in a alumni position eventually. And I realized that sustainability for nonprofits, their main constraint is their funding model. It's the more finances they can have, the more impact they can have. For nonprofits, you're inherently connected to the mission. Everything has to justifiably go back to that impact. But then you put on the other hat, and I went corporate because we have the finances, but we just need to align the values with that business case. And I think yeah, for the longest time, like CSR, ESG, whatever the acronym is, it was if I put money in, I create impact, which is the exact same structure of a nonprofit. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. There are absolutely some things in this world where you need that philanthropy, you need constant money coming in to create that impact. But I think within today's business realm, The technology has gotten so far, the regulations have gotten so far, and I think there's a very robust business case where you can say, for a majority of the stuff that I've been trying to do at this company, if we do this thing that reduces our emissions, we add value to the business in this way. I think, for scope 1 and 2, I think I was joking with our director of facilities the other day. I was like, we were talking about the ROI on the solar that we installed. And I was like, yeah, like, and then, in our machine shop, we're talking about some energy efficiency initiatives. And, I'm the sustainability manager, but the language that I'm using is operational efficiency, and that's been around for ages. And I think the line that I use for that is like sustainability at its root is about using less more efficiently, and that's been called operational efficiency for decades. So I think there's very clear cost savings on that side, but then there's the regulatory risk management of cool, like PPWR and the EPR, like packaging regulations. These countries and geographies are literally going to start taxing you based on the type of material in your packaging. So, you looking at your styrofoam packaging that you've had for 50 years, there's a clear business case for you and your customers to switching that over to a paper, foam, or a cardboard. Yeah, the regulatory pressure is coming to a head. And then finally, just customer pressure. The more consumer facing your product is, especially there's a clear generational wave where younger generations are willing to pay more and prioritize sustainability. Willingness to pay on average is around 10%. So if you can create a product that is proven to be more sustainable than the alternative, customers on average are willing to pay 10% more for that product. And typically, when you're designing sustainability, the way that you do that is by using less material, using it more efficiently, et cetera. And I think it was GreenBiz 2 years ago now, and I want to say it was the Lowe's sustainability manager. He was talking about like home washers or something, and he said sustainability is very rarely the number one criteria that gets a customer to buy one product over the other, but it is an incredibly valuable secondary criteria. And I think the example he was using was, no, it was heat pumps, switching from gas to electric heat pumps for heating. And they led with the newer models are they're quieter, they're more efficient, so your bill will go down, and oh yeah, you're reducing your emissions. I think that's when I went from the nonprofit sector where everyone just wanted to make the world a better place, and you go into the business world where everyone wants to make money. You have to lead with the values of the room that you're in. But in the back of my brain is always like, kind of how can I go rogue and like sell this as I'm saving the company money, but also we're reducing our emissions and like making the world a better place in the process.
I think you had some success with that in Hamilton in a pretty short time. You were telling me something about scrap metal rebates at some
Holy
point.
cow.
Tell us a little bit about that program.
Yeah, I mean, recycling, like our recycling program is generating like six figures in rebates per year at this point. And it's a very clear analysis of if we put this in the dumpster, it costs us money. If we put this in the cardboard baler and send it off to this recycler, they pay us for that material.
And
Um,
that seems obvious. Like sure, easy money. Is it obvious and some people don't do it because it's still hard to do, even though it's obvious because someone's got to go do it? Is it not as obvious as they think it would be? Does it take additional work that I could never imagine? Because before you can put it in the cardboard box and mail it, you have to process it somehow. Like, why does not every single person on earth just go do this tomorrow?
yeah, I mean, at a certain point, sustainability goes from the spreadsheets and it goes to uh, human engagement and really human behavior change. And yeah, it's by definition, my role is change management. I'm going in and questioning the way we've always done it. And yeah, there hasn't been someone to ask the question, why do we put this in the dumpster? Don't you know we can get paid, $50 a ton if we sell that to this person and put it in a different box? So, kind of in the position of like the what ifs. But yeah, no one's run that analysis this decade. And then it's like there's the actual implementation of okay, now we need twice the amount of space because we need a trash dumpster and a cardboard dumpster. Is that possible? Do we have space for that? Recycling, a lot of the times they want full truckloads of this material. So, okay, do we have a spare dock that we can store a trailer long term? So I think it's that economic analysis. But yeah, at the end of the day, uh, even once you have all that capex in place, you have the solution. It's getting the warehouse managers that have been throwing the stuff in the dumpster for 2 decades to just actually put it in the new place. So yeah, I think there's a lot of variety to this role. Is what I'll end with.
Someone told me the other day that the difference between invention and innovation is the ability to impact change. Meaning, if you just create something, they don't change any behavior, it's a wonderful invention.
Yeah,
But what makes it innovation is that all of a sudden people do something different. A light bulb that nobody remembers to turn on is not a very useful invention at all. And I think
yeah,
that's kind of sounds like a big part of how you're trying to think about this. Say, I can think of lots of ideas. I can put it into a report. I can do whatever. But like the real change here is bit by bit doing something like a scrap metal recycling program, doing something like doing whatever. I'm sure not easy to put solar panels in every roof just because like when I started in this world, oh, solar panels, just stick them on. There's, it's under Biden, everyone gets a tax rebate. But like you need to have a certain kind of roof. It's got to face in the right direction. It just takes a lot of, even if you can tell me you'll save $1 million tomorrow, it just takes a lot of work before a solar panel ever gets put on that building. And you're
yeah.
trying to do that. You're trying to be that person that says, all right, fine, I'm going to push these things through and do that work. Is there anything you want to do next? Anything you're trying to figure out next? Anything you're trying to experiment with next?
I mean, I think kind of sticking on this theme, it's the culture change ultimately. And that's like the long-term goal is not that you have one person that's asking these questions and filling out spreadsheets. It's that you can actually create a culture where every employee on the floor is thinking about how they can optimize. We have a very robust quality system. So there's a culture around how can we make the highest quality products possible, how can we report that in our quality management system, et cetera. But yeah, trying to extend that culture to sustainability. And ultimately, like, I'm limited by the products that our R&D teams design and their energy efficiency and the materials they use. So I've been building out a design for sustainability training and then like a eco design checklist so that our engineers, as they're designing, for quality, for cost, for all these different specifications, now they just automatically ask the question, oh, like, is there a like domestic supplier that I should look into and prioritize over an international supplier, both from a geopolitical risk standpoint and from a emissions standpoint. Um, and yeah, I think that's kind of the long term. Like this first year was really just getting the core sustainability reporting program in place. It was, yeah, we've got our greenhouse gas baseline, we've committed to science-based targets, we have our first EcoVadis score. But yeah, I think you alluded to it, but the real work is the goal isn't to spend my entire day reporting and making the numbers perfect. It's to actually go out and do stuff to make the numbers smaller. And I think that's where, yeah, thinking of true like organizational integration and culture change is, the big question that I'm asking now.
Yeah. Just for everyone here, we do the Beekly pretty much every single Thursday, unless I'm on vacation in Greece. So we're skipping 2 Thursdays from now. I'm going to post a bunch of the next ones we have in the chat here. But next week, we're interviewing the sustainability leader at Box, the software company. In a couple weeks is Claudia Pilcher at Scholastic, the publishing firm. And then Angela Fichetti at Russell Reynolds Associates, big recruiting company. And then in mid-September is a Beehive product training where we'll go through the Beehive product for customers and prospects and everyone else. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But as we finish up here, Michael and I post some of those things in the chat. I'm curious if you look forward 2 years, where do you think you want to take Hamilton's program? You guys are a private company. You are large but not massive. You are global. You serve one of the largest and most emissions intensive industries on the planet. What would success look like for you in 2 years?
Yeah, that's a fun question. I mean, success in 2 years means we have a validated science-based target, and we're actually making progress towards it. Um, and I think that's like a nice North Star. I think it also means a more formal environmental management system. It means, we're not just responding to customer requests as they come in, but we actually have an institutionalized system for managing environmental metrics at our company, which, I think ISO 14001 is kind of the North Star for that. But, that's a very technical response to that answer. I think at a high level, it means all of the customers that have been waiting on us for the last 2 years, they have the preliminary data. We've checked the box, but we're not exceeding expectations. And I would love to not just, meet that regulatory floor of, we're getting by giving you the data that you need, but we're actually positioning the company and using sustainability as a way to differentiate ourselves and stand out from our competitors, which goes back to the ultimate goal of using sustainability to add value to this business.
Amazing. I think you're gonna do it, Michael. I think you're gonna do it. I'm looking forward to the ride.
I'll die
Um,
trying.
there we go. Awesome. Thank you, Michael, so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Hope to see you next week with Box. Everyone, enjoy the weekend. Bye.
Thanks, all. Appreciate it.